Hello there and welcome to your program of choice, People, Politics and Power. I am Imonia Marire. 10 years ago, precisely on April 14th, 2014, 276 female students of government secondary school in Chibok in Borno State were abducted from their hostels by the Boko Haram terrorist group under the cover of darkness. It was the first recorded mass abduction of students by a terrorist group in Nigeria. It sent shockwaves around the world, resulting in a global campaign called Bring Back Our Girls. 10 years on, not all the girls have either been brought back or have returned home. Official figures by the Borno State government indicate that 187 of the 276 girls have been rescued, including the 57 of them that escaped on the night of the abduction, while 89 of the girls are still unaccounted for. 126 of the girls regained their freedom under the Muhammadu Buhari administration, among which were those rescued by the security agencies and a few others who miraculously walked out of the dreaded Sambisa forest with children in tow. Now, for parents and relatives of the still missing 89, it has been 10 harrowing years of trauma and pain. Over 30 parents are said to have died during this period of wait and hope, while many more have developed various forms of medical conditions. Now, after Chibok, there have been several other mass abductions and kidnaps of school children, some as young as 8 years, in other parts of northern Nigeria especially. Now, for instance, Leah Sharibu, the Dapchi school girl, remains in Boko Haram captivity for over 7 years after she and 109 others were abducted from government science secondary school in Yobe State. 5 of those 110 girls did not return alive. It has been 10 years and 3 administrations since the Chibok incident. Each always promised to bring back all the girls, yet 89 of them are still missing or unaccounted for. The question is, are they alive? Were they sold into slavery as the terror group threatened to do at that time? Are they voluntarily staying back with their captors? Many unanswered questions. So on this 10th anniversary of the Chibok abductions, we shall look back at what happened, what has happened or is happening to the lucky freed ones, the community's coping mechanism, and, of course, government responses, particularly with the Safe Schools initiative, which was a fallout of the unfortunate abduction incidents. My guests are in the studio. First, from my immediate right is Mr. Dauda Ilya, who is the national president, Chibok Community Association. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We're also joined by Buki Shonibare. She is a campaigner, long-time campaigner, 10 years running of the Bring Back Our Girls movement. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having
joining
me.
us. All right. On Sunday, the Chibok Community Association and the Bring Back Our Girls movement held a media briefing to mark the anniversary here in the Nigerian capital. Let's take a listen.
Within this time, 48 parents have lost their lives, mostly due to heart conditions and other health-related reasons. 3 parents have been killed in subsequent Boko Haram attacks in Chibok and have been victims of vitriolic campaigns aimed at dissuading us from pursuing the cause of our daughters and their welfare, coupled with the broken promises from both the federal government of Nigeria and the Borno State government.
We reiterate our call to the government that it must live up to its responsibility of returning the Chibok girls and all abducted citizens to their rightful homes. Our demands, therefore, is that the highest degree and level of public accountability be immediately demonstrated by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his administration, and thereby to meet the following demands of the Bring Back Our Girls movement.
Some Nigerians call Chibok girls a scam. I could never understand it. How do you call a person's child a scam? A real child that went to school and disappeared, and their fellow citizens called them scam. It's still something that surprises me until today. But the Sabo report of the government that doubted established that 276 girls were abducted that night, 57 of them escaped, 219 of them.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. People, politics, and power. We are looking at 10 years after the Chibok government secondary school abductions, where 276 female students were abducted by the Boko Haram terrorist group. And like we know in Nigeria, after Chibok, there have been many more abductions in different parts of the country, and especially so in the northern part of Nigeria. So what has changed in 10 years? My guests are right here. Mr. Dauda Elia, who is the National President, Chibok Community Association, and Buki Shonibare, a BBOG campaigner. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For finding time to join us.
Thank you for
Let
having
me
me.
begin by asking you, what has the past 10 years been like for you as an individual and the Chibok community?
Well, thank you. I think that is captured by the headmaster of the press release we gave yesterday, which was, and I quote, 10 years, too long, too hard to bear. That captures it in one sentence. And for me, personally, it's been a tragedy that has taken a lot. It's personal because I had a niece who was one of the 276. Luckily, she was among the
82.
75 that escaped on their own on that night, who jumped
57,
off the trucks, or who just held on to tree branches, and resilience and providence. So 2 days after that event, I was in Chibok. I went to see my cousin, her father, and she was there with her swollen ankle and told me this harrowing story. So it resonates with me personally. I've lived with it for 10 years. That's my experience.
What about the community that you live in, or at least you represent?
Yes, well, it is pervasive. Chibok is not as large as people think in terms of land area, as well as even demography. If you check the map of Borno State, you see Chibok somewhere in the middle of the entire massive land space. So each and every family is affected by this sordid affair because we are every Chibok family is interconnected by blood. That's the truth of it. We are one single community that is related to everybody. So there's no family. So the entire community is blanketed by this affair, and so that's why you see Chibok has been subdued to a point that our people have become like the entire community, like a graveyard. And given that this thing isn't a one-off, like I gave in the speech yesterday, 48 parents died of those 276. 3 others were killed. We have on record over 70 attacks from 2014. I gave a press conference in 2021, and I gave an account of 67. Today, it's gone to 80. The last being November 2023. No, I beg your pardon, at the eve of Christmas, I think 22nd, 23rd of December 2023, Boko Haram still attacked Chibok. So it's the continuous and, you know, pervasive nature of the attack following the April 14, 2014 one, and the lack of will, the lack of empathy on the part of the Borno State government to continue to give narratives. I mean, look at the press statement that was given on Saturday the 13th. Luckily for me, I didn't read that statement until I had finalized the press release for the Chibok people. And my heart was broken totally for a government to go out and write such a lengthy, meaningless, and a charade of statements as if people who are reading them are fools or idiots. Nobody would, in Borno State, nobody in Chibok would read and believe any of the things that the government is saying there. We're in touch with some of the abductees that were free. They were there at Unity Fountain yesterday. We were in touch with the parents, the one that kept crying in Florence Ozo and Obi's shoulders yesterday. So it's real. It's not something you can wish away. It's not something you can, the Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Professor Usman Tar, to give a 10-pager. It doesn't wish it away. Face the problems. Let's deal with it. So that's the vibration from the Chibok community. That's the feeling.
One very other critical issue that maybe have been glossed over time. The school was a government secondary school where all the 276 children who were abducted that night from Chibok alone, or were they from other communities around Chibok and in Borno State?
To the number, it's not wholesome Chibok. For instance, I give you one example, just to answer your question. Reverend Amos, who was pastoring the church in Chibok at that time, is a Kilba man from Adamawa State. He had 2 daughters. Till today, those 2 daughters are among the 82 that are unaccounted for. So maybe 99% of those 276 are Chibok. But there are others that are not Chibok. Dambua is an adjoining community. There are Chibok people in there and non-Chibok. So that's the answer to it. It's not 100% 276 Chibok, no. But it's a micro minority of numbers that are not Chibok.
All right. Buki, thank you for finding time to join us. It's been 10 years of hard campaign. What you started here, like a small Nigerian campaign, blossomed into a major global campaign. What has it been like in the last 10 years? I mean, how much successes and perhaps failures have you recorded in the campaign?
The last 10 years, I think it has been a sad one, day in, day out. It's not just when we have to do commemorative activities like April 14, you know, or when another Chibok girl is found or escaped. It's every day because it is a living reality for us. The fact that the girls were abducted in the first place, you know, was a failure on the part of the government. And then to now see that continuously their welfare is not even being adequately catered to is yet another failure on the side of the government. And I mentioned those two because those are the primary purpose of any government, according to Section 14, subsection 2B of the Constitution. When we started the movement, April 30th of 2014, and we had the first march, I remember I had a white shirt on and a blue jean. A black shirt, actually, and a blue jean. And we marched from the Unity Fountain and went to the National Assembly. We tried to engage some of the duty bearers. It was raining cat and dogs on that day. And then we presented the statement and we walked back to the Unity Fountain. When we came back, we had just one question. Is this the end? Or are we going to come back? And we all decided collectively on that day that we were going to come back, that our work is not yet done until all of the Chibok girls return. But we had no idea the enormity of what we were getting ourselves into. That we would have to commemorate even 30 days. Uncle Dauda, I don't know if you remember when we had the 30 days commemorative activity, and I think we had it at the Dome. And, you know, media houses were there, and then they captured it live. And we were literally screaming on that day that 30 days, 1 whole month, children have been missing. But what do you expect? When there was no official acknowledgement of the abduction until May 5, something that happened on April 14, when the state government and even the federal government denied the abduction of the girls, and even when they were going to acknowledge that the girls had been taken, they whittled down the number. And so you had to deal with a period of time where, according to experts, 24 to 48 hours is critical when anyone has been kidnapped or abducted to the eventual outcome, whether success or otherwise. And so when you see how the thing was handled from the beginning and what then became of our reality, it just, you know, drills home the sad situation that we find ourselves in. I'll close my thought on this question by saying that I think what makes this 10 years commemoration even sad, much more than I would normally, it's not just the fact that we have that large number of girls that are still missing, or Leah Sharif, or even many that we don't know. It is the fact that one would expect that Nigerian government, both at the state level, the federal level, and even at the local level, would learn from the unprecedented nature of the Chibok girls' abduction and make sure that we don't have a repeat occurrence. What do we have? Between April 14, 2014 and April 14, 2024, we've had at least 1,754 school-age children of primary and secondary school abducted in 20 incidents of abductions, And when you expand that to tertiary institutions, we are talking about at least 38 abductions where more than 1,900 children, school children, have been abducted. And we expanded that to even Islamia, you know, Islamia schools, how children are being taken. So 10 years is not just a reminder of the failure that led to the abduction of the girls. It's not just a reminder of the fact that the girls are still missing. It is a reminder of the fact that the minimum threshold or minimum standard that should be set up in all of our schools to make sure that we don't have a repeat occurrence, it has not been set up. Nothing right now says that if terrorists want to abduct children like that, they will not get into certain communities right now because we've not set that minimum standard. And maybe when we talk about the Safe School Initiative, I can throw more light on what that minimum threshold is.
Yeah, but before we go there, let's look back on reflection. You just said now, between April 14th and May 5th, when the government formally acknowledged that an abduction had taken place. I mean, there was confusion everywhere in Nigeria. Nobody wanted to believe. But on reflection, do you think that politics may have, some kind of politics may have been at play that warranted what happened during that period?
Politics
and if you bring it back to the present, I mean, how much of that is still happening in our society today?
Politics played a major role in how the Nigerian government responded, and not just the Nigerian government in terms of the supply side, but also how the Nigerian people, majority of the Nigerian people, responded to it on the demand side. Of course, there are people like us who believed that there had been abduction, and there was that galvanization of effort, and we see Bring Back Our Girls and all the other efforts. But not just those of us that formed the Bring Back Our Girls group or that are part of the Bring Back Our Girls. There are many Nigerians, you know, who also campaigned on this issue, and even those outside. But when we come back to the side of the supply side, the government, the duty bearer, you know, the fact that it was seen, I mean, 2014 political era, you know, it was seen as APC wanting to boot out PDP. It was an attack on the Goodluck Jonathan administration. Till date, many of us have lost friends. Many of us have lost relationship with even family members who believed that we ushered in a government who then, you know, made us suffer because we booted out Goodluck Jonathan. You know, that was how it was seen at that time. And even till date, there are people who still see that abduction that way. So when we look at how polarized we are, we were polarized across political lines, across ethnic lines, across religious lines, and across many others. And polarization will always come to play in situations like this. But one would expect that in a country as diverse as Nigeria, where we know that these factors will always play out, that the government will be on top of it and not allow that polarization to fester and not allow it to affect its primary duty or its primary responsibility. Then, and now, what have we seen? The Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration has not formally acknowledged the fact that we have 90-something girls that are missing. No formal commitment has been made at the federal level. If you look at the past 2 administrations before now, there was that acknowledgement and there was that effort. None has been done this time. And then what that means is that so long as there is no political will or political backing or political acknowledgement and commitment, it means that resources are not directed towards that. It means that efforts are not being directed towards that. And it's one of the things that we're seeing in this particular administration. When Section 14, subsection 2B says that the primary purpose of the government shall be the security and welfare of the people, it didn't say the primary purpose of an administration. It says the primary purpose of the government. So it doesn't matter who fills that seat. It is a national disaster, it's a national trauma that has happened to us. And government in, government out must make sure that they take it on until we have a meaningful closure to this issue.
Mr. Dauda, let me extend that a little bit. 3 administrations so far during this period between 2014 and now. The Jonathan administration was not able to rescue any of the girls at the time. But under Buhari, there was a rescue of about 126 of the girls. And since then, nothing else has happened. I'm just wondering, do you think that after 10 years, we can still hope to get any of the missing 89 or even more of those girls back home safely?
Yes, I believe so, and the basis is simply that of hope. You see, from interactions that we're having at the community level, like I said, now we have girls that have come out, and some of them have recovered mentally, and they're quite coherent. Yesterday, like I said to you, even I had a conversation with one of them in our native dialect, and they give you this impression that the remaining girls, whatever number it is, because see, you don't know how many have died. They told us, some of them have told us that they have personally partaken in the burial of some. So some of them have passed on. Some parents, like I said in the press release, at least 2 of the parents have accepted that their daughters have died and have, given closure to it. So yes, but see, beyond hope, we have to hold governments responsible. You talked about 3 different administrations over 10 years. And let me tell you, for me, I'm not as generous as Buki. It's a pervasive failure, and that was one of the captions of my release yesterday. It's a pervasive failure. I'm not interested in what party is ruling Nigeria or not. It matters little to me. For me, I'm on the demand side. I want service. And because this country has failed as a political entity, I hold this position very strongly. The Jonathan administration was held captive, but there was no reason for him to have allowed his administration to be held captive. I remember him saying that no blood, no life is worth his ambition. That kind of statement is very strong, but I didn't see him play it out. For his wife to be making some comedy out of it on television was as offensive as it could be, for me, personally. So what I had expected, I have no sympathy for Jonathan. Since he said he was not going to hang on to the office, If I were him,
She,
he had the
she
power.
was, she was not, the wife was not a comedian. Maybe she made all those comments out of genuine concern.
Yeah, that's fine. I bet it has become a major comedy streak in Nigeria today. So let's forget. I'm saying if the leadership under Jonathan at that time really wanted to deliver on its mandate, it didn't matter. He had the reins of power. Like she said, internationally, it's between 24 to 48 hours. Because you had the military, you had the electronic tracking system, you had the firepower. You could have done it. I told you 48 hours after it happened, I went to Chibok. Chibok, the major natural shade in Chibok is the neem tree.
Yes.
Under every neem tree in Chibok that I drove around were a collection of Chibok people in a mourning mood, crying, with hunters who said they had attempted to go follow the tracks of these girls because it rained a night after. So this would have been Tuesday and I was there on Thursday. It rained because on my way to my native village, I had issues with my truck. Thank God it had 4 auxiliary and I was able to get out. So what was there? The army that was not available to go after these abductors and our 276 girls were there to stop hunters and the community from doing so on the pretext that we cannot protect you. And this is fact checked. I have gone round. You can check that. It's documented. You can ask the parents. So Jonathan had his own role. He failed. It didn't matter. Unfortunately, he didn't even get the politics, by the way, if that was the prize. And he lost it. So Buhari benefited. I don't think Buhari did anything positive to get those. It's just time. Time is a physician. It's a healer. So he benefited from that natural course of time and healing. There was no any deliberate effort on his part that we could give him credit for the release of those girls. Excuse me.
Yes.
It could have been anybody in power at that time.
Now, which brings me to my next question. If the Buhari administration was able to rescue, in quote now, 126 of those girls, I'm just wondering whether, as the president of that community, you were privy to some of the negotiations that went on, and if negotiations were embarked upon to get this 126, why has it been difficult since after that time to get the remaining ones, at least the ones that are alive?
No, we're not privy. We're not. The government holds the Chibok community in contempt, particularly the Borno State government. I would refer you for the 18th time to the press release we gave yesterday. The government of Borno State holds the Chibok community in contempt. They don't think we matter. When these girls are released or they escape, it is from the army to the villa for the optics and photo shows, and that's it. No access is allowed the parents. No access. That's the main plank of my release yesterday. We are very, very angry as a people. The parents are our people. They come and cry on us as leaders. We try to reach out to the Borno State government. The Borno State government just staves us up and blocks us and refers us to all kinds of government apparatus that are not helpful. And we know that there's a lot. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I know that there are people that are fleecing government of these girls, unfortunately, and it's blood money.
Buki, I ask you that same question. If 126 of the girls were, we were told then, released, no, it's not as if the military went into the forest and rescued them. These days, we don't know the difference between release and rescue and all of that because we don't know what goes on behind the scene, the backdoor channels and all of that. But many Nigerians do believe that when the 126 were released, there were a lot of backdoor channels that were explored to get them released. If that was the case, why is that backdoor channel not being explored now to get the remaining ones who are alive from this group?
So permit me to quickly correct something about the numbers. 103 were negotiated for by the government. 21
so it was a
at
negotiation?
First. Yes, 21 at first, and then 82 the second time.
Okay.
Every other Chibok girl that have returned since then have either escaped or found somewhere, not like a coordinated. Now, this is not to say that the Nigerian military did not contribute to that eventual outcome in terms of maybe offensives that are going on that made it easy or possible for the girls to be able to come out. But in terms of direct government intervention, in terms of negotiation, it was 103. And to that question you asked, that why is that not being explored right now? I will put it as political will. When the Buhari administration came into power, during the campaign, the Buhari government campaigned on the issue of the Chibok girls. They rode on that wave, not just the globalized version of the Bring Back Our Girls movement. They rode on the fact that, insecurity had become a major issue at that time. Everybody that wanted to vote then wanted to vote for security, so long as we can sleep and wake up and our children will not be taken. And the right to education for a lot of children will also be guaranteed. So security was a main thing then. Don't forget that prior to the abduction of the Chibok girls, February 25, 2014, there was the Buniyadi massacre where 29 boys were killed. On the same day that the Chibok girls were killed, there was the Yaya bombing. The Chibok girls were abducted. There was the Yaya bombing that killed a lot of people. So a lot of things were happening at that time as we, moved towards elections. So that time, right now, maybe people will be voting on the basis of the economy. How, whoever comes into power will make sure that we don't buy bread for 2,000 naira. But then it was security. And so when the Buhari government came into power, for a government that had campaigned on that issue, negotiating then becomes, what is expected, and it was done. Now back to this particular government, and I mentioned it earlier. We've not seen that. The question is, at this stage, with the way things are, what is the best way to get the remaining girls back? For what has worked so far, as a movement, we've been careful about prescribing, what the government should do. But in terms of what has worked so far, there was negotiation. For the girls that have returned who freed themselves or who ran away, there was just that small number. So just think of 103 and then the remaining that came back. So it tells you that negotiation really worked. But of course, Bring Back Our Girls group was also attacked on the basis of that negotiation. That when negotiation happened and monies are paid and some of their boys are released, it heightens the attack. But are we going to say that children who were abducted because of the failure of government should not be brought back by any means necessary that the government considers good? Then it was brokered by the Red Cross and the Swiss government. In terms of that entire, Wall Street Journal actually did a full report on that, and it's available online, and I've also read it. So again, it boils down to the issue of political will. If this government takes the issue of the Chibok girls as a responsibility on them, then they will be able to assess what are the options that we have. First, how many girls are there? How many girls have died? A formal official acknowledgement of the fact that some of the girls have died, if possible their names, so that you can help the parents to have closure. Work with the girls that have come back. That is why the intelligence from them is quite important. Let them tell you, okay, who do we know have died, the ones that you have buried? How do you fact check that to also confirm, so that you give the parents closure, and so that we can look at the 90-something that are left and say, okay, these are the ones that we have left, and then make a commitment to Nigerians and the world that this is what you are going to do to make sure. If you say whatever you want to do, when the government then was going to do negotiation, they didn't announce to us that they were going to do negotiation. We just knew that they brought our children back. So if this government takes this as important, they are also going to make sure that they bring them back. And let me close my thought again on this question by saying this. Missing persons in Nigeria. The Chibok girl became the entry point to the conversation around missing persons. one of the things that we advocated for is the establishment of a missing persons register. Right now in Nigeria, with the number of abductions that have taken place and the number of kidnappings for ransom that we are seeing right now, we don't have a register of missing persons. So it means that there are people who have gone missing, who are nameless, who are faceless, who we don't know. And so this brings that opportunity back on the front burner for the government to make sure that that missing persons register
How much
is
advocacy
established.
is the BBOG putting up now to pressure government to reopen, if it's closed, to reopen negotiations or any other means to get back the remaining Chibok girls?
So 10 years of abduction, yesterday, the commemorative activity gave us the opportunity to reopen that chapter. More of like we as Bring Back Our Girls movement, we issued a statement. But most importantly, the parents also issued their statement through the Chibok Area Development Association, with Mr. Ilya leads. And so that sort of like put on the table, this is what we are expecting. And this is what we hope that you will be able to do. And we are hoping that that serves as the basis upon which we can have further engagement and further communication.
I asked that question because under Jonathan, under Buhari, the BBOG was very forceful in his advocacy, in his pressure on the two governments to do something. But I'm not seeing that much of it with this government. Why is that so? Why is the BBOG slowing down, so to say? Why is it not as forceful as it was under Jonathan and under Buhari?
I would not be representing the full voices of everyone if I answer that question fully. But time has passed. I would not deny the fact that lethargy set in. People really, really got mentally, psychologically, tired, and even physically tired. The movement also lost like 10 members, at different times, who died for one reason or the other. But that is not an excuse. I'm just saying that with the passage of time, things waned. Media also, took its spotlight away from it. And so we didn't see that much of traction. Now, it is not an excuse, but it also just comes back to the issue of the fact that we keep engaging. The Lagos family of the Bring Back Our Girls still meet on a weekly basis, engaging every parastatal of government, every office of government that they can engage in. But this kind of demand side work is not just on a group of people Bring Back Our Girls. We will keep doing what we must do, not just as a group and as individuals. It is the work of everyone. Civil society, media, religious organizations, and every Nigerian. So this 10 years sort of like just, woke us up again. And we hope that this re-energizes us, that energy and strength that we may have lost. It re-energizes us, to get back into engagement. But it is not for anything that has to do with who is in government or administration. At least for me, I can speak on that, and for many members of the movement.
Ms. Helia, let me take you back to the community. After the 2014 abduction in Chibok, there was the Dapchi abduction, and many more, which Buki has enumerated, about 20 incidents thereafter. And of course, that brought about the whole issue of the Safe Schools Initiative. In Chibok today, everyone can remember who was around at that time, can remember the mental picture of what the school looked like after the abduction, and the burning down of the hostels and the whole destruction that took place there. Now, what does the school look like today?
Thank you.
In Chibok?
Thank you. There were a lot of plans. And you see, plans are what they are, they're plans. You have to translate those plans into action. I remember the optics of the then finance minister and some military engineers going to Chibok and, laying some, doing some groundbreaking and foundation laying to rebuild the school under the Safe School Initiative. We saw all of that. But see, the truth about it is that it only ended up in optics. The Nigerian Army engineers who were given the contract, so to speak, or the job of rebuilding that school, fizzled out without completing the schools. Okay, so what you have in Chibok today is the other primary school that has been in Chibok since probably 1952.
Central Primary School.
Okay, Central Primary School Chibok, that was renovated, okay, by UBEC, by, you know, those usual secondary and basic counter funded by federal government and the state government, that is now being used in shifts. Okay, primary school people would use it in the morning, secondary school pupils will use it in the afternoon and do their preps and all of that. So that's the situation we are
So
in.
the main secondary school from where these girls were taken.
It's not yet standing. And it's there for anybody to go and fact check. This is the tragedy. And that's why yesterday, if you listened, the Bring Back Our Girls, for instance, made a very strong point to which I clapped for two reasons. Number one, they said, you know, because secondary education is actually is not in the concurrent list. Actually, it is the purview of the state governments to set up secondary schools. The exception to that is what the Tafawa Balewa government did way back in 1960 to set up the federal unity colleges. And I'm saying I'm excited about it because I'm a product of a federal unity college. Now, this was the suggestion by Bring Back Our Girls yesterday, that the federal government should save the Chibok secondary education by establishing a federal government girls college in Chibok, which would be a federal unity college. Bad as that has become, today there are 110 of them across Nigeria. They may not be as they were in the 70s when I went, but at least they represent the strength and they demonstrate the power of the federal government of Nigeria and its intervention in secondary education. This is the situation.
So the schools that are now being used today in Chibok, how safe are they?
That's a good question. It's the same thing as asking how safe is Chibok. I told you the last attack was in December 2023. Need I say more? They don't differentiate between schools, markets, people on the road, villagers on the farm. They don't.
So Chibok and the schools that are there are still as vulnerable as they were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So what has the Safe School Initiative achieved over the last decade?
So I mentioned at the beginning that Nigeria is party to the Safe School Declaration.
Yes.
And we became a party to it because we saw it as, because it's an international political commitment to protect education from attacks and to also protect education from military. So within international humanitarian law, when there is non-international armed conflicts like what we are having, there are certain what we call civilian objects that must not be targeted, that must not be occupied. Because once they are occupied, they make them, those objects, targetable. Churches, markets, but most importantly, schools. And so the Safe School Declaration was Nigerian government signing up to the fact that we will protect all of our civilian objects, especially schools, from such kind of occupation and from such kind of attack. Following that, the Nigerian government adopted what it called the Safe School Initiative. The Safe School Initiative, I don't know if you remember that event that was done where, you know, Dangote, many people in the private sector, many people, and then were pledging money and everything. It's one of the reasons why we're asking for accountability of over 1.4 billion naira that has been pledged, that has been donated, that has been budgeted on issues relating to the Chibok girls. But back to the Safe School Initiative. It came because of the Chibok girls' abduction. And the idea behind it was to say that we must not have a repeat of the Chibok girls' abduction.
We did have a repeat a few years after we did Dapchi. Yes.
Up until now, 4 years after the abduction of the Chibok girls, you know, in February 18, 2018, the Dapchi girls, 110 girls again were abducted. 5 of them were killed. 104 were brought back. Leah Sheribu was held back. And so the idea behind the Safe School Initiative, and if there is one thing that the Nigerian government, other than making sure that all of the girls are brought back and accounted for, is to make sure that schools are protected within the perimeters or the parameters of the Safe School Initiative. It set a minimum standard of security and safety of schools. As a matter of fact, in 2021, the government adopted what is called the National Policy on Safety, Security, and Violence-Free Schools. We must not be a nation that only come up with policies or documents. Those things must be given life. Now, what does it say? It says that every school must meet a certain minimum threshold of security and safety. And I'll give you an example, and I always read out this example. There must be certain perimeter fencing. I've gone to the entire 13 local governments in Chibok, 13 schools. I've gone to the 13 schools, trying to find, whether there is any. Now, this is around 2015, 2016, 2017, coming down the line. I've stayed there, lived with those people, And one of the things I kept going around to see in the schools is if there's any school that meets that minimum threshold, the perimeter fencing, the security personnel, when we're developing a particular policy in relation to this, was to ask ourselves, should there be military uniformed security personnel within the school walls or outside the school walls? We said no, they should be outside so that we don't militarize the school and so that children don't think that they are, under a active conflict kind of situation and they can learn safely. So we're looking at all of those situations. We also looked at, are there muster points in the school? Are there trained teachers and security and educational personnel such that if there is any attack like Chibok, what kind of response should they have? What kind of training should also be given to the children so that they know how to respond? Where should they run to? Where should they hide? Look at what is happening in the US with the gun violence. Schools are literally setting up this kind of, places where you can hide inside, and no matter the guns, it won't penetrate. Why are we not learning from the Chibok girls' abduction? Bunkers. Why are we not learning from the Chibok girls' abduction to set up such kind of minimum? Use Chibok as the model. Go to all of the schools in Chibok and use it as the model. Then replicate it in all other schools that are in the Northeast. And then replicate it in all other schools that are outside of the Northeast, because it's not just in the North that abduction of school children is taking place. Southwest, we saw what happened with Ekiti. We see what is going on in the Northwest. So in terms of security and safety, 10 years of abduction of the Chibok girls, these conversations that we're having, is yet a reminder to the Nigerian government to say that pick back up the Safe School Initiative, pick back up that model and use it to make sure that every school in Nigeria is secured within the parameters of that initiative. We must not just have documents, those documents must have life. And those documents are for the security and safety of schools and school children.
Mr. Elia, another aspect of this whole incident is that after it happened, and particularly after the rescue of the 103 students under the Buhari administration, there was a pledge by government at that time to cater for the welfare of the rescued girls. And in some cases too, their parents and all of that. What has happened between then and now? Are those girls back in school? Is government doing anything, to your knowledge, to enhance their well-being and their education?
Yes, thank you. We knew of this pledge by government. A matter of fact, government, as usual, through its apparatus, did put out some resources. I'm very aware, for instance, that the first batch were literally all taken to the American University in Yola. But that in itself was a wrong move, because you see, the American University is a top-notch, top-drawer school in Nigeria today. From where the Chibok girls are coming from, I think their educational need analysis was not done. I think it was more like a showmanship. And if you read only this week, I beg your pardon, last week, the present minister for Women Affairs, the federal, was saying that her records are showing, I'm just citing that as an example, that the government spends about $375,000 US educating the Chibok girls in AUN. For example, I have that report. And she said not under her watch would that continue. So if from 2016, when the first batch came, to date, we are spending that kind of sum of money in AUN. And from what I hear, and we have discussed this even in our village square meetings, none of them, except maybe one or two, are able to cope. All of them are like in kindergarten of that school. I don't think that school has a kindergarten. So they are in a preparatory section of the school. And I'm sorry to say this, maybe for the economic reasons the school is doing that. I don't think you set up a university and set up a preparatory school for it. So that is a source of concern for us. Some other ones that came, got some faith-based scholarship, and they've gone around the world, the US, I know for sure. Some were on the platform of the Murtala Mohammed Foundation, you know. That's a story for another day, you know, because the feedback we got, again, speaking as national president of the Kibako community, it's not very complimentary what we hear. So for me, yes, it's okay that the government has made a commitment to spend some money on their education, but I emphasize, for the benefit of the public, that needs assessment needs to be done. I mean, for instance, today you sit for common entrance to go to secondary school in Nigeria. You have to score a certain amount of marks before you qualify to be interviewed for federal schools, those 110 federal unity colleges, because they're supposed to be centers of excellence. In the same vein, administer some minimum exams for these, or put them in a preparatory school by government in a safe location, so that these monies that are voted can be seen to be well spent. We have large numbers of money. I have the records of votes from the federal government since 2016, and it's mind-boggling.
That may not be achieving its purpose.
It is not at all achieving its purpose.
All right. Let's leave it at that. Buki, well, one last word from you here, very quickly, 60 seconds. What are your thoughts moving forward?
My last word will be to re-emphasize the importance of the government, this administration, communicating and establishing a communication line with the parents of the missing Chibok girls. The Kibako Area Development Association, which is led by Mr. Ilya, is the association for the parents.
Okay.
The government needs to open that communication line and work with them in designing every intervention, every reintegration, resocialization, rehabilitation effort for all of the girls that have returned. And most importantly, the 16 girls under the care of the Borno state government. The parents are also asking what's the update regarding that. So if you open communication line, they are able to know what is happening rather than being, secluded from the affairs of their children.
Thank you so much. Mr. Dauda Ilya is the national president of Chibok Community Association, also known as the Kibako Area
Development Association. With an acronym CADA.
CADA,
K-A-D-A,
that's right.
yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. And Buki Shonibare, she is a BBOG campaigner. She's been there in the last 10 years. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you, sir.
And through you, to the people of Chibok, we say, let's keep hope alive.
Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Thank you for having us.
Right.
Thank you.
Having
All right, that's
platform.
our program for today. Please join us again when we bring you a fresh edition of People, Politics, and Power. Bye for now.